All right, freaks and geeks, let's go for a gravel ride. It's a beautiful, beautiful day today. I'll show you what the setup is here in a little bit. But first tell you, today's ride, we're going to talk about how to set up flow into your day. And today is a day of flow. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I'm glad I cleaned the lens because we're going right into dirt. But what can you do? That's how you know it's a real show. We really do it for real. And we're going to talk about the Norwegian train that won Ironman Hawaii and how they did it, how they train, what is the Norwegian Method. It's not what you think. And then also I have a funny and very useful Zen story of all things about donkeys. On some rides I stop and feed Ezekiel, our local donkey, on the route. But I'm out of carrots today. So, in his honor, we'll just talk about donkeys. When we get to the end of this road, I'll show you what rig I'm on. But first, on purpose on these shows, I've learned to mix in moments of silence as we're going along. A lot of people that watch and listen love that. I hear the sound. And then we can have a nice, easy, relaxing pace. Because as a zone 2 ultra distance athlete, to sustain the volume it takes to be successful at ultra distance stuff, you gotta back off the pace just a little bit. And let's start looking for a place where we can prop up the bike. I can show you what I'm on today. That looks like a spot right there. Looks like a nice spot. A little bit of a squeaky brake. We turn around right here. This is private from here on. And in Texas, private means they may shoot first and ask questions later. Usually not. They're pretty cool. But you just let it know. I got to start today before it got too hot. And it's nice, but it's going to get hot. But we're not out for a very long ride. Let's see what we are sporting today. Niners top secret titanium bike that they don't even know that they make, with a carbon fork, and 50 millimeters front and rear tires. I've got a WT Venture on the front and Continental Terra hard pack on the rear, which I'm really liking that tire because it's got the black chili compound that Continental makes, which is on the GP 4000s, 5000s. It's a really, really nice compound. It's nice and sticky. Got the rear radar, got 2 hours worth of fuel and water right there. And then, let's see, blinky light on the front, which leads to relaxation because I worry less about cars hitting me. So then I'm nice and relaxed and can actually focus on talking or like zone whatever, and keeping the heart rate and the fueling nice and even. And then the rear radar. And then, oh yeah, frame bag, which is mostly empty for shorter rides. And the rear radar serves a lot of the same function of letting me know if there's cars coming up behind, so I can pick a path on the road that's nice and easy, and further the zen of the ride bike on auto pause, so I can pause and talk. Oh, it's nice here in the shade. I was in the sun there to show you stuff in better light. But man, shade feels nice. And the camera's acting a little bit wonky. We're just recording some and just suddenly deciding that it's not in the mood. So we may have some jumpy editing here, but I'll try to pay attention and see what's going on. So every once in a while, I'll practice not being in a rush and doing things at the pace. There's some washboard there. At the pace that it takes to do the thing, which is very much Taoism, which is one of the two parents of Zen. Buddhism went from India to China, ran into Taoism, and the two peanut butters and jellies mixed together and made Zen. But Taoism is a recognition of that things have their own flow, and you can't hurry things. It's one of the earliest philosophers of Taoism. Lao Tzu said, if you hurry, you get nowhere fast. So we're going to practice some shade hunting today too, which is enabled by the rear radar. And gravel roads. There's no center line, so you can ride, if you are aware, you check your mirrors. There's a whole lot more road to ride on. So I got up this morning and I've been feeling rushed the past couple of days. And I was like, today's a good day to practice a flow day. And a flow day is where you quit trying to rush things to get to the next thing and just let things take as long as they're supposed to take to do them right. And we'll be back when we hit more gravel, talk about it some more. All right, second gravel. So if you rush things, it ends up taking more time in the long run. Not the first time when you rush it. Is that a car coming behind me? I'm gonna wait. That way we're not in a cloud of dust. Doing donuts. Turn my bike computer off so it's not logging 0 miles per hour here. But yeah, if you're an age grouper and you're trying to mix in being an endurance athlete with working a full-time job, and let's say you got to commute or you work from home, but full-time job, kids, all this other stuff. Oh, look at that shade on the right side. Then you end up getting in this habit of rush, so you can fit in the time, especially if you're a triathlete. If you swim, bike, and run, you're trying to be not terrible at all three sports. Is constantly cutting corners, to get it done now, and then I'll put the pieces together later, throw everything in the car to go to swim practice, and I'll figure out where everything goes when I get to the pool or when I'm leaving the pool. I know what I need to take with me, but organizing it now, you know, means I'm going to be late. And there's this thing about owning your own time that I discovered, and also a pace of doing things that I discovered much earlier. When I was a freshman in high school, of all things, that has this relaxing effect on the body. It's really fun to play around with. Got a little wind here, so we're in the aero bar. Headwind, that is. Oil, that is. Texas tea. Up here we pass a Ezekiel spot. And yeah, we'll definitely talk about the donkey in the pit, or the donkey in the hole story, and the farmer. That's a good one. But when you cut these corners, obviously eventually you have to do the work anyway. And you know, it works the first time, but then it starts to become a habit. And it causes stress. Third gravel. And the stress later on actually causes procrastination through like paralysis. When you're stressed, a lot of times you don't know what to do except surf the internet, and you wonder where the time went. And it's time you'll never get back. Nice little turn right here. Loose, off-camber, gravel, rutted, soft. Really good test of tires and tire pressure. What works? Oh, shade. So in the end, it doesn't work to try to cram all this stuff in and cut corners. So you have to start asking yourself, what if I slowed down and owned my time? I'm not a kid anymore. I'm an adult. And I'm going to get things done the right way. And a thing that'll happen to me when I'm rushing is I'll notice something while I'm in the middle of doing something else that takes just a few seconds, maybe a minute, needs to be done. And I'll be like, well, I don't have time right now because I'm in a rush. And I'll put it off. Like, say, putting something on a charger, you know, or answering a non-important email or text message. Putting things away, putting things in the dishwasher, putting dirty clothes away, you know, cleaning a water bottle out. And yeah, so I was saying something happened in 9th grade. I was a 9th grader, and I happened to have a Spanish class that was mixed grades, right? So we had seniors, juniors, sophomores all in there. And one of the guys in my class, I was tall. I was second or third tallest in my grade. But I was also young for my grade. My birthday fell, in one of those months, July, where you can decide either to enroll or wait a year. And I was tall. My parents thought I could fend for myself. They went ahead and put me in. And I was sharp. I was a smart mouth. Got an older brother. So I was already socialized with an older brother. And playing really good on little sports and stuff. Kindergarten, preschool, like soccer and whatever. So they just figured put me in. Anyway, I'm in this class. I was scrawny. Oh, and I've been on swim team a lot. Oh yeah, by 9th grade I've been playing basketball and soccer and all this stuff. So we got a strong headwind. Feels nice. As a freshman, a lot of times you'll notice that you're big high school. 3-story high school, spans a city block or two. And there's this guy in my class that was big, strong guy that was a senior. And he was not the quarterback or anything, but he was a first string on the football team. Varsity football team. It's a big deal in Texas. And also he had a girlfriend that was really pretty, and I was like, wow, this guy's so cool. And I noticed when he walked to and from that class, or if I ever happened to see him in the hallways, the school is so big, it wasn't all that often. He walked very slowly, like he was in no rush to get anywhere. Almost like he couldn't be rushed. And it was so interesting. And after a little while, I started trying to do the same thing. To, to try to be cool. And figure out what's his magic formula, for being so cool. And so one of the things I tried was walking slowly. And it changed everything. People treat you differently. You have more time to think before you act. When you're younger, people don't mess with you as much. And the camera's cutting in and out. Getting really sick of this camera. See these, I'm glad I got time. I'm taking my time today, which is my choice. These barricades right here, I could actually hear the Brazos River. That's the first time I've ever really been able to hear it. It's so still out here today. If you kept going, you're gonna have a problem. So that's down to the Brazos River, but also look at all the bullet holes in these things. People come out here and shoot. And let's get going here. Yeah, there's a combination with the camera and the remote. And one time I got the camera wet with the battery compartment not fully closed. And so many years later, many years later, stressed out at work, and I'm looking for ways to kind of get my life back a little bit. Too much going on at once. Got a tech job, so there's always like upgrades and dealing with people and systems and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, oh, I remember this thing about walking more slowly. And also, I came across it at a Zen practice session where we did regular meditation where you sit. And then we also did walking meditation where you're walking really slowly. And every step is an intentional step. You don't take one step until you're done with the one before it. It's really interesting. It's pretty cool. Don't do it if you plan on getting anywhere. Physically. Mentally, yeah. Spiritually, sure. But anyway. When I purposely slowed down to the pace that I remember, we ended up becoming friends. My friend would walk at, and that I remember slowing down. By the time I became a senior, I was captain of the varsity swim team. I was one of the tallest and biggest guys in the entire school. So I had like stature. I had a whole lot more confidence because I'd been to military school and back. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna walk like that. And wow, as a regular adult in your 30s, 40s, 50s, it is wonderful. You've earned it, you know. Own your time. Own yourself. Quit rushing everywhere. One, it doesn't make that much difference. Half the time it makes no difference. Earlier I was filming and I took my time to get out of the house, and I noticed, I heard the train crossing the tracks. Oh, we got some. Okay, we gotta practice going fast. There you go. All these videos I film of them chasing me, I never outrun them because that's the obvious thing to do. So today I thought I'd show that. So. Here's our pavement ends. About to hit a lot more gravel. But you can really feel those tires when they switch from pavement to gravel. That's so nice. The upside of gravel is just so few cars. So wonderful. So all day today, I've been doing stuff at the pace to do it right. And it's what I call flow day. Because what it does is it puts you in this flow state of you do things at the right time as they appear, and it activates this sense of no stress that also, like I mentioned earlier, alleviates this feeling of the stressful procrastination of putting things off. And then, because you're doing things at the appropriate time and at the appropriate pace for you, here we go, shade honey. That's actually pretty close to the definition of flow state by Csikszentmihalyi, whatever his name is. But where things are just challenging enough, and then that makes it interesting. It matches your skill set, is actually what the definition has a lot to do with. So things aren't too hard, they're not too easy either. And what it does is it gets you in the state of doing things just right. And then also time seems to pass a lot. It's not faster or slower, just differently. It's very enjoyable. It's like being really good at a game and playing the game and being able to demonstrate, I think, has a lot to do with it. You're able to demonstrate your abilities. And whenever you're able to demonstrate your abilities, it makes you feel smart and good about yourself. One of the proven keys to happiness is to make yourself feel like you're as smart or smarter than those around you. Just those around you, and not the entire world. Like, traffic's held up, but you know a better route, and hardly anybody else is taking it, and you take it and you didn't get as stuck in traffic. Like, how smart you felt, but you needed other people to not be as smart for you to feel as smart. But anyway, oh, this is nice. Forgot to mention, I also have a suspension stem on this bad boy. So it takes the shocks out. It's a stem that pivots at the stem, at the head tube. So the further your hands are out, the more it absorbs. So yeah, in this weird way, you end up getting more done, but also everything's based on feeling, right? You feel like you're getting more done. And that's what counts. But as you're getting all this stuff done correctly and doing it right, you feel more self-confidence and less stress, and it compounds onto itself, and you can train yourself to start taking back more of your time and doing things the right way. A classic example the Japanese do is when they put their shoes away, they line them up appropriately. Instead of a lot of us, we just throw our shoes. And I've tried it. It's really funny. It does work. Sometimes when I go to work, I've been swimming and I wear flip-flops to get there early. So I wear flip-flops in the building because my feet are still a little bit wet. And I'll put my sandals, they're black, so they're my corporate flip-flops. A little bit of squeaky. I'll put them perfectly side by side against the, this is rough turnaround stuff right here. And the feeling that they're like organized and right next to each other. And they're black and they're simple, and that's just it, just like that. really sets the tone for the very next thing you're going to do. Is going to be like that, you know, and then it just feeds itself. And when I started getting close to 50, I remember I started saying something kind of funny. Emily, my wife, or somebody else would be like, hurry up, let's go. And I would use my age as an excuse. But also, I'm an Iron Man or I'm an Ultraman or something. I'm being silly at that point. It doesn't really matter. Those things don't matter. But I'm 50 years old. I don't rush. Or I'm trying to enjoy my day. Got many days left, you know. Like Danny Devito said, he doesn't have many more days left on this earth. He's going to get real weird with it. It's one of my favorite quotes from Always Sunny in Philadelphia. But you could be 20 years old and not have many days left. So take your time and do it right. So I've been doing flow days. I might try to do like, flow week would be pretty extreme jump. But a flow like 3 days. See how long I can last with purposefully not rushing. Doing everything intentionally and with care and doing it right. There's a funny version of this that actually I've been doing forever. Oh, a meme or something, whatever, a reel on Instagram reminded me of it. This guy was telling a story about how he had a little kid and it was raining, and they'd been grocery shopping or something. But anyway, they're trying to get to the car, and the mom and the kid are like, hurry, run, you know. And the man, I think it was the boy, was telling the story about his dad. So when he was a boy, he just watched. This camera's having audio problems. It thinks it's connecting to a microphone, external microphone, when it's not, and I can't get it to stop. But I'm going to sit here and own my time and enjoy this pavement from here up. I love this section. This is down in the Hopes Creek Road. We've come out here and looked at houses several times. People think College Station's not very hilly, but that's like a ridge line right there. A ridge line through those trees right there. Big dip down in between, and then back up here. And if you go on that hill and look that way, it's pretty freaking amazing. And there's nothing out here. But there's not many houses for sale either, ever. Because it's either a 500 or 1,000 acre ranch, or nothing, or a mobile home like that. And there's a couple of new houses for sale right there. But if you're looking for something that's nice but older, but on an acre or two, just the land hasn't been divided up like that yet. But let me tell you a story about the donkey. I'm enjoying this in the shade right here. So there's this donkey wandering through the woods, and it's mixed woods like this, and farmland. I don't know why the story starts off in the jungle, because that doesn't make any sense at all, because there's not many farmers in the jungle or donkeys in the jungle. But anyway, that's the way I heard it initially. And this is a Zen story of sorts. And the donkey's wandering along and falls into a big hole. And he's down there, and you know how donkeys have this really funny and loud, like, hee-haw, hee-haw, right? Well, the donkey actually belongs to a farmer. And the farmer's actually a little tired of the donkey, very tired of the donkey. I don't know why. maybe it eats too much of the horses and cows' hay, you know, but also it's loud, you know. And, you know, you ask anybody, people love donkeys, so I don't get it. But, so the donkey's down in the hole going, hee-haw, hee-haw, wants help. The farmer, one, doesn't like the donkey, and also, by coincidence, he also wants to fill that hole. And the farmer says, oh, I'm going to do something really smart. I'm going to get rid of two problems at once. It's a terrible thing. And he starts filling in the hole with the donkey at the bottom of it. And the donkey's going, hee-haw, hee-haw, as the dirt's falling on the donkey's back. And he's like, wait a minute. This goes on for a while. And then he's like, wait a minute, I got an idea. I'm going to be quiet and get above the dirt. So as the farmer's throwing dirt down in there, the donkey just steps on the dirt. Very easy to do, right? Just lifts his feet a little bit and steps on the dirt. Something very easy to do that you and I could all do. So as the problems fall on the donkey's back, and then he kind of shakes and lets it roll off, then steps on the dirt, well, the level of the bottom of the hole comes up and up and up. And the donkey's starting to come up. And he keeps his ears down, because donkeys have the big, cute, big ears, long ears. And the farmer keeps throwing dirt in, and he's like, oh, the donkey's now quiet. And the farmer is like, oh, I've got this donkey problem solved. And then just as the hole is about to get filled up and the farmer's going to turn around and look in there, he sees well, that was a little unkind. I wonder if the camera's just so hot because of the sun. It's doing all this crazy stuff. Anyway, the donkey jumps up out of the hole just as the farmer sees his ears, and runs away and escapes and has a good life the rest on some other farm. As I've gotten older, their therapy, they're getting back in touch with nature, something that's solid and consistent, tangible. It goes at its own pace. It's predictable, mostly. It's true. It's like Conan the Barbarian, Steel, the Riddle of Steel. Because the actual real story behind the Riddle of Steel is the Vikings figured out how to make high quality steel by accident, and they weren't really sure. The soil where they lived, when they cooked down all the ore and everything and the local stuff, it actually had nickel, maybe some chromium in it, and it was eroding off the so it ended up in the metal as they hammered it down. And so they thought the gods had given it to them as a gift. If you go back and watch the beginning of Conan the Barbarian, they're talking about that. The dad's explaining to his son, one, don't run in the rain. Just kidding. And the Riddle of Steel. The mystery of steel, really. And James Earl Jones, the bad guy, is on a quest and slaughters the whole village, trying to find the steel that's so miraculous. But steel is real. It has discipline, as they say in the movie. Steel you can trust. So nature is something that you can get in touch with, and also reminds you of where you came from. And like, we see all the creatures and stuff. There's a whole other world out there living and existing. And our work world that we're doing, it's kind of made up and fictional, you know. Not kind of, it's very. It's only as real as we want to make it. And this is real. Very real. You don't get more real than this. We see a roadrunner and a bobcat, and a red hawk. Go up north and there's a grizzly bear. That's real. The weather, the trees, the consequences. Gotta call it trees and consequences. You ever been to Truth and Consequences, New Mexico? It's pretty cool. Anyway, so speaking of Norway, the Norwegian train, first, second, third place, makes you think about the Norwegian Method. And all it is, they've done study after study. The Norwegians have a culture of following instructions and also following science. All right, we are here at Salem Cemetery. I've been to Salem, Massachusetts in October, and it is wild. And boy, this would be a good place to hold a Halloween meet up, right? A little bit of first gravel, third, fourth, fifth gravel. I stopped to fix some camera settings. I'm suspicious that this inside baseball, sorry about that. The heat, along with humidity, is making the camera act wonky. It's kind of wild, so I stopped through here to check on things, see where the settings were off. And I think my front tire's a little low, but maybe we're okay. All right, we'll be back. It's crossed my mind, maybe we should record before it gets any hotter. So I got some shade here, and we'll do that. The good folks at Factor Bikes, who sponsor Phil Gaiman. And Phil Gaiman's notorious for being the voice inside the Pro Peloton. God, a long time ago now. He's not gonna like I said that. But he retired, he was clean, famously clean from doping, and tried competing at the top level and had some pretty good success, but then eventually retired and transformed it into the worst retirement ever YouTube channel, where he goes out and tries to take people's Strava segments, especially ones that are dopers. He's an awesome cyclist. But anyway, I follow him on Instagram and YouTube. And he posted some pictures of a new Factor bike. And what caught my attention first was the name Aluto, A-L-U-T-O. And we'll see, but Factor made an interesting decision to put the first at least 3 letters of aluminum in the name of that bike. I think people are going to think it's aluminum. But I had an interesting conversation with Phil back and forth. I'm not on his banned list of people that annoy him, I guess. Oh, hoping this back up. And I said, hey, I thought you weren't into racing gravel or doing gravel. Nice bike, by the way. I'll tell you about the bike in a second. But he said, no, actually, he's fine with doing gravel. That it's the, people are trying to get him to race gravel. And I didn't get into it with him too much on that. Because I'm going to say, dude, you can race gravel like I did without really racing it. You let the front pack go. I guess people just had so many expectations because he's a former pro. I mean, if he races it, he needs to race it seriously. But gravel races started out as kind of half serious races, the spirit of gravel. Half serious races with more of the mentality of a casual group ride, because they're hard and they're long. And so you need to be chill. And then at the very end, it's like a training ride, you know. At the very end, you sprint, and whoever wins, wins, and stuff like that. And we get burned out from racing. You know, you don't want to race. And so I was fortunate to start marathon mountain biking and then gravel racing with Kai, where there's no way I could keep up with the front. So I treated it like that. And like more like the bike ride on an Ironman, where you pace yourself the entire way, because you got to run a marathon at the end of it. And Kai was like, Dad, why don't you race these? So some of the shorter mountain bike races I did race. I said, yeah, I'm going as hard as I can. But psychologically, you're really not, I guess. With all that Ironman training, you're kind of holding back a little bit. And, oh, look at this. Nice little town. See Texas A&M campus over there on the horizon. Far back. But anyway, these gravel races, the way I've been doing them, is it's a race because you're going medium hard, attacking the hills a little bit. But it's more about, well, I'll tell you what I said. I said I ride to catch up with other people, to kind of see where your people are at and check out new bikes and just other fun stuff. And that actually the weekend ride by myself, or like these training rides by myself, are actually for me what I call peak bike, which means I found the peak of the mountain of the purpose. Is to ride mostly by myself, occasionally with my son or friends. And then I race on occasion just to kind of check in, right? And does the perfect amount of training. It turns almost every ride into a Zone 2 ride, which is ideal. All right, back in some shade. I was on a long uphill there with the sun, if you want to go back and look, and I was like, man, it'll overheat this camera. Same thing you learn about your body. So, yeah, when you're racing a lot, it's so much about other people, you know? And you never have time to develop yourself, think about where you are, what you're doing. It's like social media on bikes in your face. All about other people. And let's see if we can dive into this woods before it gets hot. A little bit of gravel. 4th, 5th, 6th gravel. Stagecoach Road. Look at that. And then when you train mostly by yourself, that's actually how I got good years ago, was coach told me to quit training with other people, except for on hard days, and make that rare. Look at that. So that's how you do it. You train mostly by yourself, which means you got to be self-supported with all kinds of gear. So let's talk about the bike, the Factor Aluto. So it's basically still a lot like the racing bike, their high-end racing bike. It's carbon fiber from what I could tell. And then they've slackened the head angle just a tiny, tiny bit. And what else have they done? Well, mounting bolts, I'll get to that in a second. There's something else. Oh, bottom bracket. Lower the bottom bracket by a tiny, tiny bit. Make it more stable. And that goes back to people are shortening their cranks and putting on bigger tires. So bigger tires lifts the bike back up again. Shorter cranks keeps you from hitting the ground. So for the average rider, it might wash out, even out. I hardly ever ride this road in this direction. It's pretty great. And what they've added is the same thing they've added to this bike over previous generations, is, you know, top tube mounts, mounts for a bottle cage down at the bottom of the down tube, lower than the down. Yeah, like right in front of the bottom bracket, facing out below the down tube, to use as storage for stuff, which is pretty cool. You get bored of a route, you know, ride it backwards. It's completely different. You think it wouldn't be, but it is. Here's a cyclist, just out for a ride. My friend that's doing the Great Divide ride route should be back pretty soon. I doubt he'll be on a bike for like a week or two. On your left. How's it going? That's gonna be me in like 3 years. We always joke, like, somebody really old, that'll be me in 30 years. And Kai and Emma will be like, that's you now. Like, okay, that's fair. He was on a North Star steel bike. If anybody knows what that is. Sounds Canadian. Canadian. And Let's see, a little bit more fuel. I was feeling under the weather earlier this week. I think it was dehydration. I was running a little bit of a fever. Sluggish. Well, I felt like I was running a fever. And my professional thermometer, Emily, because she's a nurse, felt my head and goes, yep. Squeak, 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 squeak. So the, I almost said the Ostro, the Factor Aluto also holds, it's skinny. So it's got down tube storage, but it's really small. Well, it's narrow. I don't know how long it is. But the interesting thing about down tube storage is what people tend to end up using it for mostly is items that you rarely use, but it's in your bike, so you can pack in. So I wish I had that on this. That'd be cool. And then you can just kind of forget about it. Inner tube, TPU inner tube, so it's nice and lightweight. Tire lever or two. I guess I could put in a frame pump if it would get in there, a little mini frame pump. I don't know, after the first two, it's kind of, you know, up to you. All right, let's get off the camera and do some heat management. Be right back. Here's where we had a grass fire the other day. Shows you how hot it is around here. Car pulls over, grass spontaneously catches fire sometimes. All right. We're going to be in the sun, but we're going to actually have some speed here. And then hit gravel. Nice. So there was an article about the bike as well. And of course with clickbait, you know, the one factor, that would've been good. The one thing that it has that I fell in love with, you know. And I was like, oh, down tube storage, you know. Oh, so back to the down tube storage. So honestly, it kind of matters how big the down tube storage is if you have some, but I wouldn't let it, you know, be a decision maker. If it's got down tube storage, but just not much. Because again, what people found out is they just tend to put things in there that they just kind of forget about. And that's honestly only a few things, like I said. I mean, by the time you start loading it up with all kinds of stuff, then you got to open that thing up all the time. It may be easier just to have a frame bag. Truck back. Where the game changer, which doesn't seem like one, but was a round seat post with a thing for a dropper. This bike has that, and that's specifically why I was okay with this bike. I will not buy a gravel bike right now without a round seat post, because I'm a huge fan of aero bars, and a round seat post gets you forward over the bottom bracket. Well, yeah, forward facing seat post, but you need a round seat post tube to use one. They make one adapter that I've seen. It's really expensive and probably heavy. But it seems like for mountain bikes, non-round seat posts, so like aero seat posts, are a problem because of all the grit and grime, and then just going off-road. And what else? Oh, dropper. If you want a dropper, pretty much, I don't know of a non-round dropper. But anyway, you get into proprietary seat posts, you get into problem. And the reason aero seat posts exist is, of course, to be more aero. And so these race bikes, I guess the big surprise was that a racy bike would do a round seat post. So if you like Factor and you want to go, I've got a friend that rides a Factor. He likes it a lot. And you want to do round seat posts so that you can do dropper, which I've never done on a gravel bike. But gravel bikes are interesting where you would do a dropper seat post because of the high-speed descents more than anything else, in my opinion. Get you lower, gain speed going down. I guess some people use it for, mountain bikers swear by it. I've got one on my mountain bike, and it's okay. It's usable. It's definitely a game changer on super technical descents, but you just don't really get into that on gravel, where it's like a cliff drop off. It smells cigarette smoke. But this bike has a round seat post, and when I was getting my frame replaced, when I saw this had round, that's the very first thing I checked. Round tire clearance and then round seat post. And believe me, I'm a fan of aero seat posts. If you want to make your seat post aero and you got a round seat post, put some tape, electrical tape, and 2 pieces of cardboard, or fold a piece of cardboard into a tail, into an aero shape, and tape that to your seat post and black it out. I've used cereal boxes, and I've done it on the fork legs before, and went and set Strava comms out on a gravel bike like that. You can aero out a round tube bike really easily with electrical tape and cardboard. And if you do it in black, or if you do it in Gorilla Tape, be careful how you do it. It looks like carbon fiber. So. And it doesn't have to be like extreme aero, it just needs a little bit, you know, like a tail about that long, you know, to keep the wind from doubling back and creating a cavity, negative pressure. Oh, we're getting hot, climbing this hill. Will the camera freak out? Is it worth it? Because we're just almost at the top and then it'll be cool again. We should give the camera a name. Black Mamba, like the old iPhone, but it was a secret. It is black. Black Mamba. Gotta say it in oh, they don't have Mambas in Australia. Surprisingly. They have everything else that's dangerous. Back into the shade. All right, let's see if we can talk about the Norwegian train before my camera overheats. So the thing about Ironman Nice, the World Championships, is 3 Norwegians took first, second, third place. And why? A single country hasn't dominated the podium since like 2016, 2017, I don't know, a long time ago, the Germans. And there's this really cool study that shows that it's a study of all the studies of Norwegian training, and it shows that they have a culture, well, yeah, they follow the instructions of coaching, of training. And my career and college degrees are in geography and classes in human geography and world history and environment. And with all these years of training and studying athlete psychology and coaching and interviewing coaches and top athletes, the ones that do the best are the ones that follow instructions of the training plan. Right? The whole point of a coach, and by the way, I coach, but the whole point of a coach is to be a second set of eyes to either encourage you or discourage you from whatever you're doing. It's just like having somebody proofread your work, right? By the way, I got, I think, 200 calories in here. Gatorade mix. Half Gatorade, half maltodextrin. And then some sodium citrate in both bottles. I got a water bottle for electrolyte. This shade feels so nice. With the rear radar, you know, and also paying attention and the white light on the front. You can ride on the shaded side with much less concern. Still, there's no center stripe, so the road's yours. But anyway, but then you get better training in. It's one of the, I told Phil Gaiman that I didn't think much of gravel either until I tried it. And then I realized how much fewer cars there are. And then also the psychological effect of being closer to nature. Like I can reach out with my hand and touch the trees, you know? A lot of the time. And you see animals living their lives and stuff. It's so nice. So after a ride, instead of being stressed out by the 16 cars that almost killed you, you feel energized by the fox that you saw, animals that you rarely see sometimes. Road runners, snakes, tarantulas. And the much more casual pace is so much more conducive to better training, like I said. Let's see if I touch the screen, does it come back to life? Oh. The screen might have turned itself off. So Norwegian culture, because it's so cold, affects how they do things. The one thing I learned is that Nokia, which sounds Japanese or Korean, but it's actually, is it Norway or Finland? Forgot. But anyway, the tundra means frozen ground, you know, year round. So to get around that, they started doing wireless before almost anybody. And Also, if you remember Ericsson phones, they were the Viking, Leif Erikson. So they made advancements in wireless because you can't bury a phone cable. And it's also one of the reasons they predict that Africa already is, I believe. Africa's so big, it's so hard to define anything about Africa. That they do a lot of wireless because the economy's bad, one thing, and people will dig up cables, but they do that here in the United States too, so I'm not speaking badly of anybody. But they'll do, for the copper and stuff like that. But also the terrain and the vast expanses. It's just easier to do gravel. To do wireless. Get gravel on the brain. Right? So your geography and the environment affects your culture and also the products of your culture. And something really interesting is Norwegians are famous, Scandinavians in general are famous for following, they're very clear and simple and follow instructions. And also follow the latest science without coming up with all kinds of crazy UFO sightings and conspiracy theories about what it really means. Lack of bro science. And it's because culturally there for 1,000+ years, if you don't do what works, what's been proven to work, you will die because of the cold winters and the rough terrain. And it's parallel evolvement, kind of like Japanese Zen. A lot of Japanese Zen, from what I recall, people can chime in, is kind of like the hipster refutation, whatever you call it, refusal of modern society, where China was so evolved and so sophisticated that, and Japan was getting that way too, and it was a call back to nature, and which they've done before very recently. I got to talk about that. It's brilliant analysis somebody did. Call back to nature and simplicity, right? And imperfection is great. So this happens in the world all the time, in different places, in different ways. So the Norwegians, from what I can tell, we want to add on top of that, we're taking the latest science, which is lactate testing. And lactate is really interesting in that it the amount that's effective. So if you go really hard, your legs burn, arms burn. Well, that's on a trajectory. So it only takes a little bit of that chemical, lactate, to signal your muscles to improve. The amount it takes for you to improve is actually below the threshold of you feeling it. So by the time you feel it, it's kind of like dehydration. By the time you feel it, it's too late. And too late meaning that tomorrow's workout won't be as successful. This is going to be hot. It's a good time to break up the film. Let's do that real quick. See, right there is a good example of unintended consequences. To keep the camera from overheating, I would go harder to get up over that hill, and then I would overheat. So I turned the camera off to keep it from overheating. I felt it was okay for me to back off, which is good, because I didn't need to get over that hill as fast. Very interesting. Lots of good long distance tips in that. Oh, it's nice downhill. Nice cooling effect. So, yeah, for training density, you want to train day after day after day, but never get too tired so that you can keep adding one little bit on top of the other. Like the donkey pit thing, where farmers throwing dirt on top of the donkey to get rid of the donkey stomping the dirt to get up on top of it. That's Kaizen, just little improvements every little time. Next thing you know, you're at the top. Now this will get hot, so let's turn off the camera again. All right. Yeah, turning the camera off lets it cool down. Start over again. So the Norwegians are sitting there doing the lactate thing with discipline before anybody else. You're like, no, Lionel Sanders, those people were doing it. Yeah, they were doing it, but not with the discipline and confidence that the Norwegians have been for so long. And that's not the end all, you know, like it'll be something else in a few years. It's just the latest of what actually worked. The thing about the new Factor bike is it holds wider tires. It's still racy, where it only holds a 47 in the rear. Not a 50 or a 52 or whatever. But I could tell you, after riding a whole lot of both, unless it's chunky, you know, you don't really need bigger than a 50. 50 seems to be really nice. If you got mixed surfaces, '50 is nice. And what's so cool about this bike is having them. Finally, I got even tires front and rear, 50-50. Ironically. And while I run them at slightly different pressures, I run softer up front. Having the same width tire, ideally you run the same tire so the tread acts the same. But honestly, the front of the bike is doing different things than the rear of the bike. And so, with that knowledge, it's actually not the dumbest thing to run, because they're doing different things, to run different tires front and rear. Definitely works. But it is an interesting feeling having the same front and back, like this bike. Like when I was going down that descent just a second ago where it's kind of rough, gravelly, I had my old bike with only a 42 in the rear. I'd be thinking, I gotta kind of watch that rear tire, you know? Where it's like, if my front can go over it, my rear can go over it. If I've got matching, at least tire width and similar pressure. Yeah, so I always like to use Lionel Sanders as an example of somebody that's all over the place. And I'm guilty of the same over the years. I'm no better. He's a really good example of an age grouper too. That's like, you have all this ability, all of us do. And we get pulled around by all this information coming at us. And a lot of it works is to stick with something and then do the Kaizen approach. Slowly improve. Kaizen is where you make small changes. You keep what works, lose what doesn't. A little bit of testing and repeatability. And Westerners, non-Norwegians, more than anybody, are more prone to being swayed about with, oh, I'm not really sure, because they don't do all this. They do all this like scientific testing and following the instructions that the Norwegians do. And that's why right now the Norwegians are at the top. That method of following the latest science and not deviating and sticking with it. I got some flying ants down the back of my jersey. That sucks. This is where military school training helps. We had to stand at attention no matter what. It flies up your nose. You learn that pain comes, irritations, they come and then they go. Not everything is making a big deal about. Pretty flowers right there. It's an old Zen story where there's a monk or somebody in the woods that's realized he's being stalked by a tiger, and he runs, and he falls over, jumps off of a cliff by accident, falls off a cliff. Tiger's at the top, and he's like eating he's hanging by a root, a branch or something that's sticking out the side of a cliff. And the story varies, but at the bottom is either jagged rocks or another tiger that's down there waiting for him to fall to eat him. So he's gonna die either way. But on the root or the branch or whatever, he either notices a flower or like a berry, like a strawberry or something. He's like, oh, pretty. That's pretty. Or eats the berry and goes, delicious. And then the story ends and you never know what happened. And I notice over the years as I get happier and happier doing endurance training and doing it for self-improvement and also learning to be more and more in the moment. You'll see me on these videos be like, this sucks, the heat. And I go, oh, pretty flower. So it's true. It really is something. Some more water. I'm a little thirsty. Like I said, we allow moments of quiet to turn this more into a Zen experience. A lot of people listen to this just to enjoy the ride. And like a ride, I get emails all the time. You're like a riding buddy. Well, imagine when you go riding with a buddy, there's a lot of times where you don't say anything. That's why I don't clip out everything. Last little interesting bit about the Zen arising in different cultures. I think Sweden has a word for lagom, which is like doing nothing. The art of doing nothing. Nice little climb here. I'm testing traction on a climb there. See if the fatter tire. I'm new to a 50 rear, so it's fun to play with. Definitely does not slip out. I see you, you see me. Is Japan very recently had a moment, a nationwide moment where a whole bunch of people decided we've had enough. We're going to revert back to simplicity and flow and doing things easier. And a lot of people, this documentary video that I saw said that, you know, the Americans was 2008 with the stock market crash, economic crash, but no, we had one before that, the 9/11 attacks. And in some of my later YouTube videos, you'll see a little description at the bottom that says, I saw this in lots of my friends. We were climbing the corporate ladder and trying to be successful. We're the kids of the 80s where our parents were working their asses off, long commutes, which you had to do, wearing suits to work. And so we're doing the same thing, degrees, pushing our way, trying to climb that corporate ladder and as fast as you can, get to the top, because that's success. And I got laid off because we had a tech downturn, a tech crash in 99, 2000, 2001, started to go down. Finally got laid off from my dream job, and I'd worked my way up with a master's degree all the way up to being a manager at a .com listed on the NASDAQ. So I had like close to $1 million in shares or something that was now worthless. And the week after I got laid off, I'm at home watching TV in San Diego, putting my resume and applying on monster.com back then. And on all the news, 2 planes flew into the towers and sat there because I had no job with my, just like holy crap. Watching this on TV, and the Twin Towers is the epitome of success in a way, of the 80s corporate success, 90s corporate success, you know. And these are people that got to work on time. They did everything right. Because the planes hit kind of early. They didn't skip the day to go surfing, you know. And they're dying the most horrific deaths, and it's all on TV. You're watching people jump from the buildings, the towers collapsing, people dying everywhere, 2,000 people plus dead, right? And so a lot of us were like, that sucks. Okay, I need to go say hi to Ezekiel. He'll be mad if I don't. Hey, baby. No, over here, over here. I don't have any carrots. I don't have any carrots. Oh. I'm so sorry, baby. Can we just be friends? Can we just be friends? Do I have to have carrots to be your friend? I know, I don't have anything. I don't have any. Look, I got nothing. I just came to say hi. Okay? No, I don't have anything. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm gonna keep going so I'm not teasing you anymore. I needed to see you today, myself. God, I feel bad. So a lot of people quit their jobs. A lot of people changed what they were doing in life. The big one with us was way more, because there's all these love notes from the planes too. People on the planes about how much they love their family, right? And so here in the United States, there was a big focus on returning. Maybe the corporate ladder climb isn't the best thing in the world. And what if we return to doing things more simply and closer to family? Because up until then, yeah, definitely success to me was getting a job wherever in the world that was the most successful. So my brother, we were from Texas. My brother went to Chicago, I went to San Diego. Consider that success. The further away you went, in a weird way, the bigger success you were, because that's what my dad did. We went to bigger cities, bigger and better cities than where we came from. And that was a sign, you know? You're able to get a job that far away, that's how important you are. Well, in Japan, they had something really similar in, what was it, 2011? It doesn't seem that seems like a long time ago. The earthquake and the tsunamis. And what they saw was modern society with all this stuff, right? And the stuff was heaped up on waves and smashed into them. And it wasn't just the tsunami. And it was all these little towns along the coastline. They also had the nuclear power plant meltdown, the whatever, forgot what it's called. That was big. It was almost like Chernobyl. So you had all these people go, but I want to turn back to a simple way of living, because all this, however, I'm just saying, this is what this one study showed. But they were tired of chaos. So like we were chasing the corporate ladder and success, they had somehow swamped themselves in chaos. Probably material goods. And maybe something to do with seeing their own material goods smashed on top of them. So it's like by the waves, because that's what so much of the footage is in like shipping ports, and cars and houses just rolling all over on top of one another. And by then, right, way more cell phones, video footage of this, so even more impactful. Very, very interesting. But what Japan has is a very recent history of a culture of kind of simplicity. Not that long ago, that was also advanced. It'd be like going to back to our pioneer days here in the United States. But our pioneer days were very rough and primitive, where Japanese return to a previous time before all the chaos, where things were much more simple, was already kind of advanced and sophisticated as far as like artwork and architecture. They weren't discovering and trying to establish new lands and territories. They were people out in the middle of nowhere. It was very developed. And they'd already, so they like were able to revert and start practicing the tea ceremony again, you know. And just like the United States and Africa Japan has a very, very complicated history. You can't define it's just one thing. Don't at me. It's way more complicated than that. So it's like some segment of the population, or back to some idealized, is a great way to put it, version of Japanese history. You know, we have an idealized version of American history too. Ask people. You see all these video clips of asking people when was America great? You're gonna make America great again, and they're like, well, this decade. And then somebody will mention all the horrible things in that decade. They're like, well, not that. You know, it's like, well, okay, so maybe not. Anyway, this has been a nice ride with you guys. I think the camera held up. I may be on to something. This is class gravel right here. No, I may do another section. I'm really enjoying this. We might do another section. I'll think of like how to wrap this up while I'm riding pavement. Well, 2 more sections gravel. This one barely counts. These 2 together count as something. I'm still battling how to put these things together as shows. Because I want to do long content. Like, these rides are really nice, so we can talk about anything. Really good. Zone 2. Lots of fun stuff happens on these longer rides. But then putting them out as a show, I'm trying to master the art of filming where it doesn't take me a long time to edit. Because I got so much stuff that I make that I never end up putting out as shows because it takes too long. All right, it's gonna be hot, so I'm gonna turn off the camera and we'll be back. Let the camera cool down. All right, yeah, the idea of the camera getting too hot came from Kai was over at my house last night. And I was telling about how the camera was wigging out lately. And he picked it up and he goes, man, that's hot. Even though it wasn't doing anything, it was just sitting on the desk. The house is 73, 75, degrees, whatever. And I was watching the videos remotely, so the camera was kind of processing. So I was watching them remotely on my phone, but the camera wasn't really recording or anything. But I was like, huh. Yeah, cameras get hot. They always talk about cooling and stuff. So anyway, the things in life where I decided to live in a smaller town, have a slower paced job instead of, it's still fast paced and high tech, but not like that last job. And the cutthroat competitiveness for each other's jobs and to climb that ladder. As somebody called it, the greasy corporate ladder. Definitely a rat race. And living in the same smaller town is just amazing. And there was downsides at first, but as the internet got better, you can start having anything and everything you want. And it's not like we live in the outback or on the North Slope of Alaska. And we're a twin city of like 200,000. And then just prairie all the way around. Traffic's getting worse, all that, but just in general, it's pretty great. But, oh yeah, briefly on this bike, speaking about that Ostro, the thing that I've been wanting to do, and I might get some soon because somebody had some spare ones, it's carbon wheels. The way to improve any bike almost without fail, is if it's got aluminum wheels, metal wheels, to go up to carbon. Carbon wheels are so good now. It's kind of like carbon forks. They're non-moving, well, almost everything carbon's a non-moving part, but it's just simple. So they can overbuild them a little bit, so they're pretty tough. They used to be fragile. They get some tougher ones, and then the loss in rotational weight and the way they're able to shape them and make them deeper, make them more aero, is I cannot wait to at some point put carbon wheels on this. Because I remember when I first got aero wheels on my tri-bike, really good ones. You got Zip 404 front, 808 rear, the disc on the rear. Oh my God, the bike was just like so much faster. And I've still got them. They're incredible. This is going to be the last part of the show. Passing a car here. And yeah, trying to get Kai on a wider frame. He's got the same frame as my last frame that cracked, so his is of limited use. It's very concerning. His hasn't cracked yet. So he's selling an old mountain bike and hopefully using that money to buy a wider frame and get off that other frame. Heard nothing from Vast. I got mine warranted because mine actually cracked. We don't want his to crack. And Niner, Kai's addicted to carbon. And this frame's fantastic, and Niner makes one in carbon. I tease all the time about this one's titanium. It's actually hydroformed aluminum, which is amazing. You get that aluminum rigid tail end for power transfer. Hydroform means they can shape the tubes a lot like carbon. And by that meaning they can shape them in a way that affects the ride quality to make it stiff where you want and comfortable where you don't, and use less material. They're very hydroformed aluminum is really lightweight and strong, and inexpensive, comparatively speaking. You buy those carbon wheels with the difference, make you way faster. Anyway, Kai likes carbon, and this frame is fantastic. The geometry, the ride quality. Oh, the big thing now with lower tire pressures and fatter tires, not just gravel bikes, but road bikes too. The advantages of a better ride quality of carbon are kind of negated. And titanium too. Like I always say, things are in thresholds, and at some point you tip over a threshold where something doesn't matter anymore. Now something else matters. You know, at some point it's the heat, not your fitness, or vice versa. And the ride quality of carbon fiber isn't such an advantage anymore over aluminum because the tire pressures are soft enough where it wipes out the difference anymore. And then metal, aluminum, steel, titanium is better for off-road because it's more resistant to impacts and stuff. And then you haven't spent so much money on a bike that's going to be out of date as far as standards. in just a few years anyway. Upgrade the frame to the next thing that never seems to stop. Universal rear derailleur hanger. Wider tire clearances. When we all went to disc brakes. I've got a titanium road bike, a forever road bike. And it is rim brake, tire clearance for 25. And riding this thing is so much more fun. You're like, well, this is gonna be my forever bike. It's like, nah, something will change. All right, that's it. Kai and I are planning out an excursion ride, maybe a 2-day ride out near Enchanted Rock in the Texas Hill Country, kind of like Central West Texas, sort of. I'm trying to explain that to non-Texans. West Texas means something else. Central Texas and West Texas, and Central West and North and whatever, it means something else completely to people who live in Texas than outside of Texas. People do that a lot. We refer to things based on population density, not the geographic shape. And you really wouldn't know that unless you lived here. So North Texas is more like Dallas, Fort Worth. You're like, well, there's a whole lot of Texas north of that. Yeah, we call that the Panhandle. And Central Texas is not in the center of Texas, but it's kind of the center of the population density of Texas. West Texas is mostly empty. Okay, that's enough geography pedanticness. See you next ride. Everybody stay safe out there. Work the uphills, cruise the downhills, and keep the rubber side down. Out.